Hi everybody, my name is Sabia and I'm an immigration and family lawyer here in the Greater Toronto Area or the GTA, and we'll be going into how to prepare for a successful year of school. Join me. So along with being a full-time lawyer, I actually also mentor on the side, and a lot of my proteges ask me, Sabia, what are some good tips on how to prepare for school in general or law school in particular? So I always tell them I have some tips that you should jot down so that you can refer back to them later. And I've actually devised them into like a few categories so that even if it's midway through school or university, that you can always refer back to them. And that's exactly what they do. They'll write them down and refer back to the tips. So we're gonna start off with the first tip. My first tip is, to really find a good group of friends head on. So finding that good group of friends means that, not only do they become your social group and gathering, they also become your study buddies. And having a successful study group means that, you prepare well in advance of your study group so that you can pose the right questions for other study buddies to answer. So that was a really good tip that I learned during my years at law school. And actually, I learned that from my sister, not even from, my group itself, but she said, well, if you don't know the answer, take it to your study group, pose the question, and let other people answer it sufficiently for you. So I felt like that tip was tremendous. I mean, it helped me during not only the tutorial sittings when the professor would ask and pose questions, but also later on for examination questions, and then later even for my licensing exams. So that's the first tip. You want to make a good set of friends that become your study buddies and essentially make your study group when you're preparing for tutorials and examinations. The second tip I always give my proteges is that you want to, look at the syllabus that you get the very first day the professor provides it. Now, it's very easy to sort of, put that at the top of your binder and forget about it, but it actually lays out the entire school year very sufficiently. It becomes a reference point, really. Something that, you can refer back to, and it gives you a good skeleton outline of what's to come. Once you kind of familiarize yourself with that syllabus, each time you go into lectures, you're going to know head on that whatever topic the professor's talking about, you're going to have kind of familiarize yourself with the terminology. Because in law, whilst there may be definition for certain things out in the lay world, the definitions that are applicable in the legal world may differ quite extensively. So you want to prepare well in advance in terms of just understanding and absorbing that syllabus. Also, the next tip that I provide alongside looking through your syllabus is, make sure you kind of purchase your textbook well in advance. I always say this because you don't want to be one of those students that are waiting for the textbook to come back in if it's sold out and for restock. Because once you kind of are provided your textbook, like for instance, here I have, just for an example, is my constitutional law, like your core topics, you have to have it. You have to pass that core topic in order to go into year 2 or 3. You want to kind of familiarize yourself with the topics within the textbook. So, just going through the chapter headings and understanding, of what's to come during the entire semester. It really creates a comfort zone, I would say. It doesn't shies you away from getting nervous, and you start to understand the terms that are being used throughout your lectures and your tutorials, and then later for examinations. So it kind of creates a good foundation for you to pivot off of during the entire school year. My third tip is how do you successfully prepare for, your tutorials? So I always tell everybody I mentor, tutorials are the one and only time you can really get comfortable with the professor one-on-one. I mean, you can go after class, but I felt like tutorials were, the most best time to raise a question in regards to anything that you don't understand. And at that point, you shouldn't ever feel or shy away from asking that question. There might be someone sitting right next to you pondering about the same thing. So you want to feel extremely comfortable in your tutorial classes posing questions. Now, the way I would advise you to, just provide some information in regards to preparing for your tutorials are stay on top of your readings. You want to make sure that, you are always going into your tutorials well prepared. And by going in well prepared, that means you're posing your sufficient questions, you're walking out with your answers, and you're preparing yourself eventually for the examinations towards the end of the school year. So you want to prepare well in advance for that. Now, one tip on preparing well in advance for that is sort of going through that syllabus that you've been provided, or the notes that you've been provided during lecture, and then hand in hand with the syllabus, because the syllabus kind of outlines what tutorial readings you need to have done, and dividing your readings so that you absorb that content as much as possible before going in. So for instance, let's just say today, starting now till your next tutorial, you have 12 days. You're going to want to divide your pages in those 12 days, and you have 200 pages for that one class. So for constitutional law, you have 200 pages to read coming in 12 days. You're going to want to take 200 and divide that by 12, and that roughs out to be like 16 to 17 pages. So each day you want to hit reading 16 to 17 pages and taking your notes and absorbing that content, so that you've read it, you've absorbed it, you've written your notes, and that you've prepared well with the questions that you've been told to answer going into tutorial, so that you're not scrounging to kind of meet that deadline and then not really sufficiently answering the questions going into tutorial. Now, that's by preparing well in advance, that's allowing you to kind of side note the questions that you want to ask the professor. That means you're participating. The professor now notices you, that you're engaging, and that you're asking good questions, or questions that you need answered that you're gonna potentially face anyways when examination period comes. So that's my next tip. My fifth tip for preparing and having a good disciplined routine during law school is kind of creating a color-coded system within your readings. I mean, I can make another video if you don't sort of quickly understand it from what I'm getting into right now, and you all feel like it's too much information all in one video. But if you create a color-coded system from your first year of law school with your readings, you're gonna feel like you're more organized when it comes to examinations, and then eventually your licensing exams. You're gonna use the color coding system once you discipline yourself on how to use it throughout your entire career, until you walk across that stage and are done your bar exams and walk across the stage and get licensed. So what I usually did was, what I mean by the color coding system is that one got away. So I assigned each highlighter for something in particular. So I did blue for precedents, I did pink for statutes, orange for cases and dates, and I left green for general highlighting, and along with yellow, and I don't have that here. And then what I did was I also made sure the little post-its or the tabs that I also purchased were the same colors, and I used the tabs outside of the books to refer back to. So what this does in essence is that when towards the end of your year, when you have 1,000+ pages of readings, it allows you to dive into the general topic, and then in particular to any case or statute or precedent quickly. So during examination period, you're not scrounging to look for the topic that you once studied at the very beginning in September. So that became a very good tip that I kind of came up with on my own. If you liked my video, please subscribe, leave any tips for whatever topic you would like to hear from me next, and a thumbs up.